Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that if you're returning. How you doing today? Okay, well, you know the story. Get your coffee. You're gonna need it. All right, well, first up, let's talk about the weather, okay? Those of us in hurricane-prone areas, okay? Up the Atlantic side and the Gulf Coast side, okay? We're following two disturbances right now, okay, across the tropical Atlantic at the moment. But tropical disturbance number one, the one closest to the Caribbean islands, is most likely to develop into at least a tropical depression and is heading in the general direction of Florida. All right. The computer forecast models are in unusually good agreement about the system's path this week over or near the large Caribbean islands and toward the Bahamas and Florida. The open question is whether the disturbance will organize and how strong it might become. The consensus is that tropical disturbance number one will arrive in the vicinity of South Florida around Friday, Saturday, at least as a strong moisture surge with some gusty downpours. It would seem that the disturbance has a hard road ahead of it, while the upper level winds appear reasonably conducive for development. The system is plowing directly into a batch of Saharan air. Some of the dry air seems likely to wrap into the circulation, which would limit the thunderstorms that could form around the center, a requirement for significant strengthening. Now, in addition, the consensus track of the latest computer forecast models takes the system over or near the mountains of Puerto Rico on Tuesday into Wednesday. Heavy rain, gusty winds are expected there. Wednesday into Thursday, the system is forecast to interact with the tall mountains of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Again, very heavy rainfall, flooding is possible. If the disturbance ends up tracking over or near those mountains, okay, the mountainous islands, because you know how sometimes like when it gets over to the mountainous islands, it'll break up. It diminishes the chance that a well-organized circulation would emerge in the Bahamas or around Florida or Cuba around the end of that week, okay? Now, in addition, when the system gets near Florida, an upper-level disturbance will come into play, which would limit potential development depending on how the two systems interact. Now, nothing about the forecast is certain, of course, because you know these things. You can never really... There's so much uncertainty when it comes to a hurricane. So all forecasts for undeveloped or just developing storms are subject to very large errors. We've seen this in the past, okay? We'll have to see how things develop over the next few days. If an organized circulation emerges, the computer forecast models would likely become more reliable, all right? Now, the National Hurricane Center is alerting residents of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands that tropical storm watches or warnings might be required at any time if tropical disturbance number one suddenly organizes and appears as if it could become Tropical Storm Fred before reaching those islands. Now, note that the map that you saw that I put up, okay, for the thumbnail of this video, the red one, okay, on the NHC map looks like a typical forecast cone, okay? But it's not. This is the area within which a tropical depression or tropical storm would likely form sometime over the next 5 days, if it forms at all. But the length of the area is in recognition of the uncertainty given the negative factors involved, but it would only take a patch of conducive atmosphere and open water to allow that circulation to consolidate and organize into a depression or low-end tropical storm. Because you know, as well as I do, as soon as that hits that hot water, what happens? It strengthens. So there are no indications at this time that this storm will become a strong storm. But like I said, so much uncertainty, right? But given the uncertainties around just developing storms, we have to watch carefully until we are sure. Now, the disturbance number 2 is looking weak, okay? The National Hurricane Center is still only giving it a slight chance of development. Must have been a robocall. Because we all love those, don't we? It's only giving a slight chance of developing into at least a tropical depression, okay? And the computer forecast models generally show it moving west and falling apart or getting pulled into tropical disturbance 1's circulation, okay? Now, long-range computer forecast models show another system will move off Africa into the Atlantic, and it looks like the hurricane season is picking up right on schedule. So, you know what I'm going to say, right? Don't wait until the last minute when this thing is right on top of us to say, oopsie poopsie, I should go get water and non-perishables, huh? Yeah, let's do that now, okay? And on to the next thing, right? So, this was sent to me, okay? And this is just the title alone, okay? This article is a little old, but it's still very striking. It says, 1 year of hell, surviving in a full Shtf collapse in Bosnia. Many in the precious metals community are eagerly anticipating a complete systematic collapse of the financial system because as preppers, they expect to not only survive, but to prosper in an SHTF scenario. We suspect, however, that the following must read account of surviving the Bosnian War in the midst of a complete collapse of the grid and financial system will be eye-opening in just how difficult it is to survive a full-on Mad Max scenario, even if one has spent years preparing for it. Now, I have seen in many a video comment section, this is going to be like Mad Max. This is going to be like Mad Max. Are you sure you want that to happen? You sure about that? Do you even know what that situation would even be like? Do you really want to live your life like that? You know, so the person who wrote this is actually from Bosnia, okay? And it starts out like this. I am from Bosnia. Between 1992 and 1995, it was hell. For 1 year, I lived and survived in a city with 6,000 people without water, electricity, gasoline, medical help, civil defense, distribution service, any kind of traditional service or centralized rule. Money soon became worthless. We returned to an exchange for a tin can of spam, you could have a woman. But he said spam, but he called it Tushanka. That is their version of spam, okay? Arms, ammunition, candles, lighters, antibiotics, gas, batteries, and food. We fought for these things like animals. In these situations, it all changes. Men become monsters. Strength was in numbers. For a man living alone, getting killed and robbed would be just another matter of time, even if he was armed. The following is my experience. Our city was blockaded by the army, and for 1 year, life in the city turned into total crap. We had no army, no police. We only had armed groups. Those armed protected their families and their homes. So kind of like what we would consider militia, okay? When it all started, some of us were better prepared, but most of the neighbors' families had enough food for only a few days. Some had pistols, a few had AK-47s or shotguns. After about a month or two, gangs started operating, destroying everything. Hospitals, for example, turned into slaughterhouses. There was no more police. And think about it, what's going on in this country. They wanted to fund, right? About 80% of the hospital staff were gone. I got lucky. My family at the time was fairly large, 15 people in a large house, six people, 3 AKs, and we survived, most of us at least. The Americans dropped MREs every 10 days to help blockade cities. This was never enough. Some, very few, had gardens. It took 3 months for the first rumors to spread of men dying from hunger and cold. We removed all the doors, the window frames from the abandoned houses, ripped up the floors, and burned the furniture for heat. Many died from diseases, especially from the water. 2 from my own family. We drank mostly rainwater, ate pigeons, even rats. Money soon became worthless. We returned to an exchange. For a tin can of spam, you could have a woman. It is hard to speak of, but it's true. Most of the women who sold themselves were desperate mothers. Arms, ammunition, candle, lighters, antibiotics, gas, batteries, food. We fought for these things like animals. In these situations, it all changes. Men were monsters, and it was disgusting. Strength was in numbers. A man living alone, getting killed and robbed, would be just a matter of time, even if he was armed. And today, me and my family are well prepared. I am well armed. I have experience. It does not matter what will happen. An earthquake, a war, tsunami, aliens, terrorists, economic collapse, uprising. The important part is that something will happen. And here's my experience, and you can make it your own. Don't stay apart from your family. Prepare together. Choose reliable friends. Number 1, move safely in a city. The city was divided into communities along streets. Our street, 15 to 20 homes, had patrols. 5 armed men every week to watch for gangs, for enemies. All the exchanges occurred in the street. About 5 kilometers away was an entire street for trading. All well organized, but going there was too dangerous because of the snipers. You could also get robbed by bandits. I only went there twice when I needed something really rare. A list of medicines, mainly antibiotics, of the French original in the text. Nobody used automobiles in the city. The streets were blocked by wreckage and by abandoned cars. Gas was very expensive. If one needed to go somewhere, that was done at night. Never travel alone or in groups that were too big. Always 2, 3 men, all armed, travel swift in the shadows, across the streets, through ruins, not along open streets. No patches. There were many gangs, 10 to 15 men strong, some as large as 50 men. But there were also many normal men, like you, me, father, grandfather, who killed and robbed. There were no good, bad men. There were, most were in the middle and ready for the worst. What about food? Your home city is surrounded by woods. Why did you burn doors and furniture? There were not that many woods around the city. It was very beautiful. Restaurants, cinemas, schools, even an airport. Every tree in the city and in the city park was cut down for fuel in the first 2 months. Without electricity for cooking and heat, we burned anything that burned. Furniture, doors, flooring. That wood burned swiftly. We had no suburbs or suburban farms. The enemy was in the suburbs. We were surrounded. Even in the city, you never knew who was the enemy at any given point. What knowledge was useful to you in that period? To imagine the situation a bit better, you should know it was practically a return to the Stone Age. For example, I had a container of cooking gas, but I did not use that for heat. That would be too expensive. I attached a nozzle to it I made myself and used to fill lighters. Lighters were precious. If a man brought an empty lighter, I would fill it, and he would give me a tin of food or a candle. I was a paramedic. In these conditions, my knowledge was my wealth. Be curious and skilled. In these conditions, the ability to fix things is more valuable than gold. Items and supplies will inevitably run out, but your skills will keep you fed. I wish to say this: learn to fix things, shoes, people. My neighbor, for example, knew how to make kerosene for lamps. He never went hungry. If you had 3 months to prepare now, what would you do? 3 months? Run away from the country. I'm kidding. Today, I know everything can collapse really fast. I have a stockpile of food, hygiene items, batteries, enough to last me for 6 months. I live in a very secure flat and own a home with a shelter in a village 5 kilometers away. Another 6 months supply there too. It's a small village. Most people there are well prepared. The war had taught them. I have 4 weapons, 2,000 rounds for each. I had a garden. I have learned how to garden. Also, I have good instinct. You know, when everyone around you keeps telling you it'll all be fine, but you know all will collapse. I have strength to do what I need to protect my family, because when it all collapses, you must be ready to do bad things to keep your children alive and protect your family. And surviving on your own is practically impossible, and that's what you think. Even you're armed and ready, if you're alone, you'll die. And I have seen that happen many times. Families and groups well prepared with skills and knowledge in various fields. That's much better. And what would you stockpile? Oh, that depends. If you plan to live by theft, all you need is weapons and ammo, right? Lots of ammo. If not, more food, hygiene items, batteries, accumulators, little trading items, knives, lighters, flints, soaps. Also, alcohol of a type that keeps well. The cheapest whiskey is a good trading item. And many people died from insufficient hygiene. You need simple items in great amounts. For example, garbage bags, lots of them. Toilet paper. Non-reusable dishes and cups. You'll need lots of them. I know that because we didn't have any at all. As for me, a supply of hygiene items is perhaps more important than food. You can shoot a pigeon. You can find a plant to eat. You can't find or shoot disinfectant. Disinfectant, detergents, bleach, soap, gloves, masks. First aid skills, washing wounds and burns. Perhaps you will find a doctor and will not be able to pay him. Learn to use antibiotics. It's good to have a stockpile of them. You should choose the simplest weapons. I carry a Glock 45. I like it, but it's a rare gun here. So I have 2 TT pistols too. Everyone has them, and ammo is common. I don't like Kalashnikovs, but again, same story. Everyone has them, so do I. But you must own small, noticeable items. For example, the generator is good, but 1,000 Bic lighters are better. A generator will attract attention. If there's any trouble, but 1,000 lighters are compact, cheap, and can always be traded. We usually collected rainwater into 4 large barrels and then boiled it. There was a small river, but the water in it became very dirty very fast. It's also important to have containers for water, barrels, buckets. Now, were gold and silver useful? Yes. I personally traded all the gold coins in the house for ammunition. Sometimes we got our hands on money, dollars, Deutschmarks. But we bought some things for them, but this was rare and prices were astronomical. For example, a can of beans cost $30 to $40. The local money quickly became worthless. Everything we needed, we traded through barter. Was salt expensive? Yes, but coffee and cigarettes were even more expensive. I had lots of alcohol and traded it without problems. Alcohol consumption grew over 10 times as compared to peacetime. Perhaps today it's more useful to keep a stock of cigarettes, lighters, batteries. They take up less space. At this time, I was not a survivalist. We had no time to prepare, several days before the shit hit the fan. The politicians kept repeating over the TV that everything was going according to plan. How many times have we heard that in the past couple of days? Everything is going according to plan. No shut-in. Nothing. It's all perfect. Oh my God. Stack it to the rafters. When they say everything is wonderful, rainbows and unicorns and chocolate chips, and glitter bombs, and all this wonderful horse shit, that's when you know to stack it to the rafters and prepare for the worst. All right? There's no reason to be concerned. When the sky fell on our heads, we took what we could. Was it difficult to purchase firearms? What did you trade for arms and ammunition? After the war, we had guns in every house. The police confiscated lots of guns at the beginning of the war. Oh, hiccup. That was terrible. Oh, I hate hiccups. Darn. Hang on. Okay. Much better. Shoot. Anyway. But most of them we hid. Now I have one legal gun that I have a license for. Under the law, that's called a temporary collection. If there's unrest, the government will seize all the registered ones. And never forget that. You know, there are many people who have one legal one, but also illegal ones as well. And if that one gets seized, you know, if you have good trade goods, you might be able to get a gun in a tough situation. But remember, the most difficult time is the first few days, and perhaps you won't have enough time to find a weapon to protect your family. To be disarmed in a time of chaos and panic is a bad idea. In my case, there was a man who needed a car battery for his radio. He had shotguns. I traded the accumulator for both of them. Sometimes I traded ammunition for food, and a few weeks later I traded food for ammunition. Never did the trade at home, never in great amounts. Few people knew how much and what I keep at home. The most important thing is to keep as many things as possible in terms of space and money. Eventually, you'll understand what is more valuable. Correction. I'll always value weapons and ammunition, the most. Second, maybe gas masks and filters. And going back to this with the guy who needed the car battery, I spoke to my mechanic today. He called me and he was talking about bartering and stuff like that. And he was telling me that he's willing to start bartering. So his information is always in the description box below. His name is Dave, okay? He owns Consumer Car Care, which is in Hernando County. It's on Commercial Way and Forest Oaks Boulevard. Give him a call, okay? And if you are like a licensed handyman or, you know, whatever the case may be, if you have a skill that you can trade, he'll, you know, I'm sure be willing to work on your car if you can match that with whatever you can offer. You know what I'm saying? So give it a try. Call Dave, okay? Because when I tell you, he is literally the most honest mechanic ever. I've known this man for 15 years. He is one of us, okay? He's one of us. He can be trusted. I trust him. So, now what about security? Our defenses were very primitive. Again, we weren't ready, and we used what we could. The windows were shattered, the roofs were in horrible state after the bombings, and the windows were blocked, some with sandbags, others with rocks. I blocked the fence gate with wreckage and garbage and used a ladder to get across the wall. When I came home, I asked someone inside to pass over the ladder. We had a fellow on our street that completely barricaded himself in his house. He broke a hole in the wall, creating a passage for himself into the ruins of the neighbor's house, a sort of secret entrance. Now, maybe this would seem strange, but the most protected houses were looted and destroyed first. In my area of the city, there were beautiful houses with walls, dogs, alarms, barred windows. People attacked those first. Probably because they knew that those houses had the most to steal. Some held out, others did not. It all depended how many hands and guns they had inside. I think defense is very important, but it must be carried out unobtrusively. If you are in a city and SHTF comes, you need a simple, non-flashy place with lots of guns and ammo. But how much ammo? As much as possible. And that's another thing that Dave and I had a discussion about. You know, how much? How much is too much? How much is enough? That's up to you as an individual. So make your house as unattractive as you can. I mean, don't have, you know, Sanford and Son, but you know what I mean? One of those. But see, if you live in an HOA, you're up shit's creek because there's certain things that you're not allowed to do, you know? So right now I own a steel door, but that's just against the first wave of chaos. After that passes, I will leave the city to rejoin a larger group of people, friends and family. There were some situations during the war, there's no need for details, but we always had superior firepower and a brick wall on our side. We also constantly kept quiet, someone watching the streets, and quality organization is paramount in a case of gang attacks. Well, yeah, because that's going to happen. Our perimeter was defended primitively. All the exits were barricaded and had little firing like slits. Inside, we had at least 5 family members ready for battle at any time. And on one man in the street, hidden in a shelter. Wow. We stayed home through the day to avoid sniper fire. At first, the weak perished, and then the rest would fight. During the day, the streets were practically empty due to sniper fire. Defenses were oriented towards short-range combat alone. Many died if they went out to gather information, for example. It's important to remember we had no information, no radio, no TV, no rumors, nothing else. There was no organized army. Every man fought. We had no choice. Everybody was armed, ready to defend themselves. You should not wear quality items in the city. Someone will murder you to take them. Don't even carry a pretty long arm. That will attract attention. Let me tell you something. If shit hits the fan starts tomorrow, I'll be humble. I'll look like everyone else, desperate, fearful. Maybe I'll even shout and cry a little bit. Pretty clothing is excluded altogether. I will not go out in my new tactical outfit to shout, I have come. You're doomed. Bad guys. No, I'll stay aside, well armed, well prepared, waiting, evaluating my possibilities with my best friend or my brother. Exactly. Gray man. That's what that's called. Gray man. Super defenses, super guns, meaningless. If people think they should steal your things, that you're profitable, they will. It's only a question of time and the amount of guns in hands. So how is the situation with toilets? We used shovels and a patch of earth near the house. Does it seem dirty? It was. We washed with rainwater or in the river, but most of the time the latter was too dangerous. We had no toilet paper, and if we had any, we would trade it anyway. It was a dirty business. Let me give you a piece of advice. You need guns and ammo first. Second, everything else. Literally everything. All depends on the space and money you have. If you forget something, there will always be someone to trade with for it. But if you forget weapons and ammo, there will be access for trading for you. I don't think big families are extra mouths. Big families mean more guns and strength. From there, everyone prepares on his own. How did people treat the sick and the injured? Most people, or most injuries, were from gunfire. Without a specialist and without equipment, if any injured man found a doctor anywhere, he would have about a 30% chance of survival. It ain't the movie. People died. Many people from infections or of superficial wounds. I had antibiotics for 3 to 4 uses, for the family, of course. And people died foolishly quite often. Simple diarrhea will kill you in a few days without medicine, with limited amounts of water. There were many skin diseases and food poisonings. Nothing to it. Many used local plants and pure alcohol, enough for the short term, but useless in the long term. Hygiene is very important, as well as having enough medicine as possible, especially antibiotics. So there you have it. I'll leave this link in the description box below. All right. So this is a real shit hit the fan. Is it coming here? I hope not. But like I said, start saying, everything's fine. Everything's wonderful. No need to worry. No lockdowns. No this, no that. Everything's beautiful. Everything's perfect. That's when you really got to start to worry. You know what I mean? All right, guys, I'm out of here. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay positive, keep prepping, and as always, fearless. Bye.